Desperate to clear her name, Sophie decided to confront Lara directly. She had no proof that Lara was behind the video, but she knew in her gut that this was her doing. Sophie found Lara in the school courtyard, sitting with Madison. Both girls were laughing and whispering to each other, their smug expressions making Sophie's blood boil. Without thinking, Sophie marched up to them, her heart pounding. "You did this," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "You made that video." Meadow High School is a noble boarding school that sits in the heart of Abuja City, filled with students from a rich background. Lara Johnson was Senator Johnson Akpan's only daughter. She had everything she needed. Lara Johnson stood by her locker, her glossy black hair cascading over her shoulders like a queen's cloak. She wasn't just the most popular girl at Meadow High School, she was the high school queen. Everything about her was perfect, from her designer outfits to the way she carried herself. People loved her, envied her, and most importantly, feared her. That's the way it has always been. With a soft click, she opened her locker and glanced at her reflection in the small mirror stuck to the inside of the door. Perfect. As usual. But there was something different today, something she couldn't quite place. The air felt strange, almost like the quiet before a storm. Lara's best friend, Tina Park, appeared beside her, leaning against the locker with a smirk. Tina, with her jet black bob and piercing green eyes, always seemed a little too sharp for her own good. But Lara didn't mind. Tina was her loyal second-in-command, the one who made sure things ran smoothly. "Have you seen him?" Tina asked, her eyes twinkling mischievously. "Who?" Lara asked, flipping through her textbooks, barely interested. "The new guy. Eric Daniels. His. Different." Lara rolled her eyes. "Different how?" "Tall, kind of mysterious. He doesn't care about the usual things. He doesn't even notice you." Tina chuckled, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "It's like he doesn't even know who the queen of this school is." Lara froze. A guy who didn't care about her? Didn't know who she was? Impossible. "No one ignores me," Lara said, her voice low but firm. "He'll learn." Later that morning, Lara made her way through the hallway, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Students parted like the Red Sea as she walked past, all eyes on her. But she wasn't focused on them today. Her thoughts were on Eric Daniels. She spotted him near the back of the school courtyard, leaning against the wall with a book in his hand. He looked nothing like the other boys in school. He wore simple clothes, not the designer brands Lara was used to seeing, but there was something about him that drew attention. His dark brown hair was a little messy, and his deep-set eyes looked like they held 1,000 secrets. Lara stopped in front of him, her arms crossed. "You're Eric, right?" He glanced up, his gaze cool and uninterested. "Yeah. And you're Lara." A flicker of annoyance passed through her. He knew her name, but his voice carried no reverence. It was just neutral. "You must be new here," she said, her voice laced with superiority. "Let me give you some advice. You're at Meadow High now, and things work a certain way." "Oh." Eric raised an eyebrow, clearly uninterested. Lara took a step closer, her presence commanding attention. "I run things around here. People respect me." Eric closed his book slowly, looking her directly in the eyes. "Is that what you call it? Respect?" Lara felt her pulse quicken, but she refused to show it. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough," Eric replied calmly. "And I'm not interested in playing high school games." Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving Lara standing there, speechless for the first time in years. She clenched her fists. No one had ever spoken to her like that. As Eric disappeared into the crowd, Tina sidled up to Lara, her lips curved in a smirk. "Looks like someone's not bowing to the queen." Lara narrowed her eyes. "I'll make sure he does." Later that day, Lara sat at the lunch table with her boyfriend, Jake Thompson. Tall, athletic, and handsome, Jake was the king to her queen. They'd been together since freshman year, and everyone knew they were the perfect couple. But something had changed recently. He wasn't as attentive as he used to be. He was distracted. "So," Lara said, looking across the table at him, "are we still going to that party this weekend?" Jake glanced up, his expression distant. "Huh? Oh, yeah. Sure. She frowned. You don't sound too excited. Jake ran a hand through his sandy blonde hair, avoiding her gaze. It's just, I've got a lot going on right now. Football, school, you know. Lara stared at him, feeling a pang of uncertainty for the first time. Something wasn't right, but she didn't know what. Tina, sitting across from them, noticed the tension and leaned forward. Maybe Jake needs a break, Lara. You know, some time to himself. Jake looked at Tina, his eyes softening slightly. Lara didn't miss the way his gaze lingered on her friend a second longer than usual. Lara's stomach tightened. Yeah, maybe. But deep down, she wasn't convinced. Something was happening, something that she couldn't control. And Lara Johnson always had control. That afternoon, Lara found herself in the girls' bathroom, staring at her reflection. She knew she was beautiful, everyone said so, but right now, she didn't feel beautiful. She felt vulnerable. Suddenly, the door opened, and Sophie Edwards walked in. Sophie was one of those girls who went unnoticed. She wasn't ugly, just plain. Her long brown hair was always tied up in a messy bun, and she wore clothes that didn't make her stand out. Lara barely acknowledged her, expecting Sophie to hurry out like everyone else did when they saw her. But Sophie paused at the sink, glancing at Lara's reflection. Are you okay? Sophie asked, her voice gentle. Lara stiffened. No one asked her if she was okay. She was Lara Johnson. The Queen didn't have problems. But something about Sophie's genuine concern made her pause. I'm fine, Lara said quickly, her voice colder than she intended. Sophie nodded, washing her hands. You don't have to pretend, you know. People act like high school is this big, important thing, but it's not everything. Lara turned, narrowing her eyes. What would you know about it? Sophie smiled softly. More than you think. And just like that, she walked out, leaving Lara alone with her thoughts. For the first time in a long time, Lara felt a strange sense of unease. People were changing. Jake was distant, Eric didn't care about her power, and now even someone like Sophie was acting like she understood something Lara didn't. The cracks were starting to show. And Lara hated it. The next day, things took a stranger turn. Lara walked into the school auditorium, where the whole school was gathered for a student council announcement. As she made her way to the front, she felt eyes on her, not the usual admiring glances, but something else. Whispers followed her every step. Tina was waiting for her, a sly smile on her face. He's back at it again. Who? Lara asked, feeling her temper flare. Eric, Tina said, nodding toward the stage. Lara followed her gaze. Eric was sitting near the back, completely uninterested in the event. But something about his casual indifference irritated her even more than before. How could he not care? Didn't he understand who she was? As the student council president began speaking, Lara felt her heart pound in her chest. She was losing control, and it was driving her crazy. After the assembly, Lara found Eric standing outside the school, leaning against the brick wall as if he owned the place. She marched up to him, her heels clicking with every step, and stopped just inches away from him. Who do you think you are? She demanded, her voice sharp. Eric looked at her with mild amusement. What do you mean? You're trying to undermine me, Lara accused, her eyes flashing. You think you can come here and act like I don't matter? Eric's gaze darkened slightly, and for the first time, Lara saw something deeper in his eyes, something almost dangerous. I'm not trying to do anything, he said quietly. But if you're that threatened by me, maybe you should ask yourself why. Lara opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Eric gave her one last glance before walking away, leaving her standing there, fuming. As she watched him go, a thought crept into Lara's mind that she couldn't shake. What if he's right? That evening, Lara met up with Tina at the local cafe. The two girls sat in a booth by the window, sipping their drinks, but the usual light conversation between them was strained. Tina smirked as she stirred her iced coffee. So, how's your little feud with Eric going? Lara narrowed her eyes. I don't like him. He's trying to ruin everything. Tina shrugged. Maybe you're just losing your touch. Jake's been distant lately, haven't you noticed? Lara's stomach clenched. She had noticed, but she hadn't wanted to admit it. Jake is just busy with football and school. You know how it is. Sure. Tina's voice was casual, but there was an edge to it. But don't you think it's weird? I've seen him talking to Sophie Edwards. A lot. Lara froze, her cup halfway to her lips. Sophie Edwards? The plain, ordinary girl who had dared to speak to her in the bathroom? There was no way Jake would be interested in someone like her. No way. I'm not worried, Lara said, but the words felt hollow even as she spoke them. Tina leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You should be. Things are changing, Lara. You're not the only queen in this school anymore. Lara's grip tightened on her cup. She could feel the control slipping through her fingers, and it terrified her. The next day, Lara decided to confront Jake. She couldn't let this uncertainty fester any longer. She found him at lunch, sitting with his football buddies, but today he wasn't laughing or joking around like usual. He looked distant. Jake, we need to talk, Lara said, her voice firm. Jake glanced up at her, then back at his friends. Can we do this later? No, we can't, Lara insisted, grabbing his arm and pulling him away from the table. She led him to a quiet corner of the courtyard, her heart racing. What's going on with you? She demanded. You've been acting weird for weeks. And now I hear you've been talking to Sophie Edwards? Jake ran a hand through his hair, clearly uncomfortable. Lara, it's not what you think. Then what is it? Because it sure looks like you're avoiding me. Jake sighed, leaning against the wall. I don't know how to say this. Just say it. I think we need to take a break. Lara's world seemed to tilt for a moment. A break? Are you serious? I just need some space, Jake said, his eyes pleading for her to understand. Things have been intense lately, and I feel like I'm losing myself. It's not you, it's just. I need to figure things out. Lara stared at him, unable to believe what she was hearing. This wasn't happening. Jake wasn't breaking up with her. He couldn't be. I don't believe you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. This is about Sophie, isn't it? Jake didn't answer, but the guilt in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. Tears burned behind Lara's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Fine. If you want space, you can have it. But don't come crawling back to me when you realize what a mistake you've made. Without waiting for his response, Lara turned on her heel and walked away, her heart shattering with every step. Lara spent the next few days avoiding Jake, ignoring Tina's smug comments, and trying to pretend like everything was fine. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. The cracks in her perfect life were growing, and if she didn't do something soon, the whole thing would come crashing down. That's when she made a decision. If she couldn't control Jake, and if Eric Daniels thought he could just waltz into her school and act like she didn't matter, then she would have to show them both exactly who they were dealing with. It was time to remind everyone why Lara Johnson was the queen. She found Tina at her locker after school, her mind racing with ideas. I need your help. Tina raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Oh, what's the plan? Lara leaned in, her voice low. We're going to ruin Sophie Edwards. Tina's eyes lit up with excitement. Now you're talking. The next morning, the first whispers started circulating through the school. It was subtle at first, just a few quiet comments here and there. But by lunchtime, the entire school was buzzing with gossip about Sophie Edwards. Lara sat at her usual table, watching the chaos unfold with a satisfied smirk. Tina had done her job well. The rumors were vicious and completely untrue, but that didn't matter. All that mattered was that Sophie's reputation was being destroyed. Did you hear what Sophie did at that party last weekend? I heard she's been sneaking around with Jake. She's such a fake. I can't believe I ever thought she was nice. Lara felt a twisted sense of satisfaction as she listened to the rumors spread like wildfire. This was how things worked in high school. If someone crossed her, they paid the price. But as the day went on, something strange happened. Instead of Sophie crumbling under the pressure, she seemed unfazed. She walked through the hallways with her head held high, completely ignoring the whispers around her. It was almost as if the rumors didn't bother her at all. Lara watched in disbelief as Sophie smiled at people, her calm demeanor making the rumors seem even more ridiculous. How is she not freaking out? Lara hissed to Tina, who was sitting beside her at lunch. Tina shrugged, looking equally confused. Maybe she's just pretending. No one can handle that kind of pressure forever. Lara wasn't so sure. Sophie was different from the other girls she had taken down. There was something about her that made Lara uneasy, like she knew something Lara didn't. And then, to make matters worse, she saw Jake walking over to Sophie's table, sitting down next to her, and talking to her like nothing had changed. Lara's blood boiled. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Sophie was supposed to be humiliated, not sitting with her ex-boyfriend like everything was fine. That night, Lara sat in her room, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She had done everything right. She was the queen of Meadow High. People were supposed to fear her, respect her, and do what she said. But now, everything was slipping out of her control. Jake had left her. Eric didn't care about her power. And Sophie was somehow untouchable. She picked up her phone and sent a text to Tina, *, we need to go bigger. Meet me tomorrow. *. Watch out for episode 2. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an exciting new story. Your support means a lot, and I look forward to sharing more captivating tales with you. See you in the next video.